Good morning, everybody. Hi, welcome to this webinar. It's going to be on the launch of the 4 new AIQ qualifications, which start for delivery on the 1st of May 2026. My name is Helen Scanlon and I'm the compare for today. I work for NCFE and I manage a team of provider development officers, and we offer support and guidance, CPD activities, etc. for NCFE providers, and this is why I'm involved in this. I've been working collaboratively with Active IQ teams to offer support for you guys with these new qualifications. The session is being recorded and it will be available after the session and made available to everybody who attends. Today's session is designed to give you a clear overview of the qualifications, what they involve, and how they can be delivered in your centres. Colleagues on the webinar today, I'll not name everybody, but from across the team, we've got representatives from our Content Solutions team, Business Development team, and Quality Assurance team. And we're here today to support the session and answer your questions. Please note these qualifications do not attract public funding. We won't be covering any of the recent updated qualifications that are due to be relaunched in May. And if you do have any questions relating to the relaunched qualifications, we'd encourage you to direct those to our customer services team or your dedicated external verifier, who will be able to support you further. So a bit of housekeeping. The session will run with a Q&A at the end, so please submit any questions into the Q&A section. You'll have noticed that the chat function isn't available and it will remain off during the session, so we do ask you to use the Q&A function. We do have some dedicated time at the end of the session to answer your questions. We have some questions that we've already been sent, so thank you for anyone who sent those in. If we don't manage to answer all the questions today, we will follow them all up after the session. So the session content for today has been pre-recorded by Roy Scott from our Content Solutions team. I'm going to hand over to Roy now with the recording.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining. My name is Roy and I'm a Product Development Manager here at Active IQ. Really appreciate you taking the time to attend this webinar today. I'm happy to deliver this introduction and showcase into the 4 qualifications that we'll be releasing and that will be available for registrations from the 1st of May. I'd like to share with you some key information around these qualifications and also to showcase the resources that we've developed to support the delivery and the assessment of the qualifications. So these are the 4 qualifications we'll be launching from the 1st of May. So the Certificate in Fitness Coaching, Diploma in Personal Training, Diploma in Sports Massage Therapy, and the award in Adapting Physical Activity for antenatal and postnatal clients. So as you can see here on the screen at the moment, we've referenced the qualification of qual numbers, the guided learning hours, and the total qualification time. If I take you through the units that make up each of the qualifications, first of all, fitness coaching. So you'll see 7 units, and similar units, if you're used to the RQF and the existing versions, you've been delivering them, you'll see there's some familiar unit names, but we will delve into the difference in terms of the content moving forward. But you'll see here perhaps a couple of introductory units that you may not be familiar with in terms of the principles of fitness training and the principles of nutrition and lifestyle. So a mix between theory and practical elements that support the job role. You'll see a slight change in the name and title of the qualification as well, moving away from instructing and moving towards coaching. Then we have the Diploma in Personal Training. You'll see the units here, 6 units, similar unit title names to perhaps what you've been used to if you've been delivering with us previously. However, I will go through the new content within the actual units itself in terms of the changes that are a response to the employer engagement activities. If we take a look at the Diploma in Sports Massage, we have 5 units, a nice split between theory-based elements and practical-based elements to ensure that we get the best possible outcome for the learner. And finally, if we take a look at the award in adapting physical activity for antenatal and postnatal clients, just consists of the 1 unit, slight change in name from perhaps what you're used to, and I'll also go through the new content that's embedded within that unit. Okay, so let's go through the new content in terms of the four qualifications we've developed. So Active IQ have carried out extensive employer engagement activities recently, and we really wanted these qualifications to reflect the changes within the industry, professional standard updates, and requirements in terms of current areas or challenges that learners who qualify may face within the industry as it stands. We're really aiming to produce the best possible exercise professional or sports massage therapist for the maximum success when they qualify. So hopefully you'll see these changes do reflect that. So let's move into the qualifications themselves. Started off with fitness coaching then. So we've added the immune system and body composition into the anatomy and physiology unit. That was obviously decisions made and sort of a prevalence or higher need for areas that perhaps came out of the pandemic. So very relevant to this particular unit. We've also added the unit that covers the principles of fitness training, so that's a bit more comprehensive now if you compare that to what previously existed. And we've expanded the coverage of the nutrition and lifestyle unit as well, as you can see there on the screen, the areas that we've covered, including stress management. And this is a big introduction to wellness piece that came out heavily in the employer engagement activities we carried out. Another area that was in high demand and perhaps lacking a little bit in terms of current recruits is the communication and customer care skills. So we've made sure we've strengthened that area and we've embedded that within the consultation element. We've got the addition of a small group session in the gym environment, and this has replaced the group induction element as well. So that came out heavily in the employer engagement. And then we've got a minimum range of exercises within the exercise mode observation. That's key, and that still allows learners to have artistic license and freedom to develop the program that they would develop for their actual program observation that reflects the consultation. And we've also introduced an element of program review for the returning client in terms of program design. So again, reflecting the vocation and how it plays out where the job exists in the industry. So moving on to personal trainer. So we have more introductions of topics within the anatomy and physiology unit. So this now includes functional kinesiology, the respiratory system, the immune system, and body composition. We've got an additional aspect in terms of content around the role of the personal trainer, and we have increased the emphasis on risk stratification as well. So that just raises the level of awareness in those particular areas, which are really important, especially in terms of scope of practice and referral. We've got some coverage around low risk conditions and the aging client. Came out of the employer engagement. We feel it's really important that the current demographic of the UK is serviced in the best possible way, and obviously those trends rely on our current recruits being able to deal with those particular clients. We've strengthened the baseline health and fitness assessments that are required, and we've also introduced a reassessment requirement for that within the periodisation plan and the programming aspect so that they can return to those initial baseline measurements and measure the success of their intervention. We strengthened up the implementation of data-driven technologies to support clients. So previously it would have been a research piece, but we've strengthened this up into actual implementation and application of data-driven technologies that learners will use and have obviously become more prevalent in recent years. Still on personal training, last couple of points, but we've increased the emphasis on the alternative environment use. So reflecting a broader scope of personal training employment outcomes or scenarios or environments. And this does include online now. And we've got some small group provision in there as well, which has been raised compared to previous levels. Finally, the business element now includes marketing strategies and offers learners content on how they can offer additional products or services. with a slightly lower emphasis on the profit and loss forecasting that we had in there previously. So moving on to sports massage. So we've got some physiological effects of sports massage, and that's been added into the anatomy and physiology unit. We've got some objective assessment elements that we've added as well, and some scenario-based case study elements that are embedded that allows learners to really sort of practice and home in on their skills before they work within the summative area of the actual qualification. So that's giving them extra skills and elements to their repertoire and their what they come out with. In terms of the observational elements for sports massage, we've realigned around lower body, upper body, and pre and post event sports massage scenarios for the practical element as well. So that's a new aspect or a new realignment of those practical elements. And finally, if we move on to antenatal and postnatal qualification, we've got some general updates in terms of the overall content, and we've got the new UK references, obviously ever changing and dynamic field, so the content reflects that. We've got some physiological considerations when dealing with antenatal and postnatal clients, which is a new aspect or updated aspect. We've included social, economical, and cultural barriers to physical activity for antenatal and postnatal clients. And finally, we've got the importance of engaging regular CPD relevant to scope of practice. So that's a highlight, or sort of a bit of a highlight reel into some of the changes and the content that we've added into these qualifications. Hopefully you can see will align to current guidelines, current industry standards. So as you would expect, each qualification has a qualification specification that's assigned to it. And this replaces the old qualification guidance that we'd previously provided. I'd like to show you an example from Fitness Coach and highlight some of the changes in terms of how this looks and how this is presented and the information within that will help you support you as centres and your approved staff. So let's take a look at the document. So the start of the document concludes with a bit of a summary of the qualification. Some of the information already provided you within the webinar, but we've got additional elements such as minimum age, what the purpose is of the qualification, the grading scale, how it's assessed, what environments need to be available, and other areas such as UCAS points, performance points, regulatory information, so where does it link to, and funding. We move into a summary of the contents, and then the introduction deals with the aims and objectives of the qualification, the guidelines for entry, and where there is a prerequisite and where it is applicable that will be contained within that section, how to achieve the qualification, so the unit summaries, what you can progress on to, the resource requirements, and the environmental requirements as well. Also consists of how the qualification is assessed and how it is to be assessed, and any kind of internal assessment as well. Section 2 of this document breaks into the actual units itself, and it drills down into the guidance and the information that you would need in terms of learning outcomes, assessment criteria, and range. So let's take a look at this as an example. So anatomy and physiology for exercise, unit 1. So we have the information around the learning outcomes and the assessment criteria. For many of you, that would be standard in terms of what you've seen before. However, one of the big changes is we've now attached a range. So you'll see bolded areas within the assessment criteria and a range that links to the minimum requirements that learners must learn and obviously be assessed against in terms of their portfolio of evidence. So where there is a bolded section, there is minimum requirements, and you'll see there is a verb descriptor, there is a must include or may include or a minimum range attached to each of these to give that full guidance. And what that would do is will sort of help you in terms of a more granular detail understanding of the qualification and what's required, but also it will allow you the capacity to develop your own center device learning resources that will make up the portfolio of evidence if you do decide to go down that route and you don't decide to select what we are going to provide and what I'm going to show you later on in the webinar. So this continues throughout the full qualification in this kind of detail, giving you that full information. So I skip right to the bottom of the document, if that's okay, and move into the terms. So the command verbs are explained as well. So the command verb, you'll see command verbs attached to each of the assessment criteria, and that's quite important if you do decide to devise your own centre resources. Finally, we finish off with the support materials and reproduction of this document information and a little bit of information about how the guided learning and the levels are related to each of the units. So this is a breakdown in terms of appendix for the unit. A significant change of approach to these new qualifications relates to assessment. So we're moving from providing centres with a traditional assessment LAP to an approach with a greater degree of flexibility and responsibility on the centre to cover the qualification assessment criteria and the development of a portfolio of evidence. So essentially there will be three options for centres in terms of how this is put together, the portfolio of evidence. So the centre can either decide to take the optional learning resources Active IQ will provide. You can devise your own fully, or you could provide a little bit of a mix. So you could take some of ours and develop some of your own. If you do wish to devise your own portfolio of evidence, either sort of partially or fully, then you'd need to liaise with your external verifier. So if this option is selected, then you want to adopt the link to the qualification specification that I showed you previously, and that's going to be key. Hence why you saw the level of detail in that document I've showed you in terms of how the learning outcomes, assessment criteria, and the range is put together. We appreciate this is new, so we are going to be supporting our centres that decide to go down that option with some webinar support sessions that are going to be available, and these will be ready from the 1st of May. What I'm going to do now though is show you what to expect if you decide to use the optional learning resources that Active IQ have developed to support you with your portfolio of evidence. And all these resources for all of the qualifications will be available and free. These will be available within Active Intel from the 1st of May. So let me show you a summary document that we've produced for our optional learning resources to support your portfolio of evidence. So in this case, this document represents the level 2 certificate in fitness coaching, so the full coverage of the qualification in terms of learning resources. So if we move into the document, you'll see that it's separated into each of the resources separated into the unit that it relates to. There's a little bit of narrative as to what it covers and how it works, and then a suggested delivery order on the right hand side. Obviously you can still change and amend that to work within your own schemes of work or your delivery models. But you'll see that the learning resources are split into four main categories. We have workbooks. If I move further on in the document, we've got professional discussion workbooks. We've also got assignments, and then we've also got the observational elements. So where that exists, it's a checklist that you'll use to make those judgments. So we have one of these for each of the qualifications, each of the four qualifications we're launching. So here's what you can expect from a typical workbook resource. In this case, it's energy systems. So a range of questions. These can be answered in hard copy format or electronically. So you've got the option there to print them out or complete them electronically. And you can see there's a variety in question types. Some of them involve matching, some of them will be multiple choice, some of them are label-based questions, but we've got that variety in there. And the nature of the question will relate to those command verbs I showed you within the qualification specification. So hopefully a nice variety, keeping it nice and dynamic and ensuring that it's an engaging topic or portfolio of evidence-based resource. So here we have a checklist that supports the exercise modes component of the fitness coaching qualification. So we have a little bit of an overview behind what's required, and then a typical checklist that most of you'll be familiar with. And finally, as an example, we can have a look at an assignment. So this assignment supports the element that covers planning a safe and effective small group exercise session. So again, a bit of an overview, a setup scenario in this case, and then a series of questions that will follow, or tasks that will follow, that embed within the assignment itself. So again, nice and varied and brought to life. Okay, so let's take a look at which qualification resources are available to support your delivery of these qualifications. So here you can see a summary. So for certificate in fitness coaching, we have hard copy manuals, e-manuals and e-learning all available now, or from the 1st of May. For the level 3 diploma in personal training, same, hard copy manuals, e-manuals, e-learning available now. For the diploma in sports massage, we have hard copy manuals that are available and also e-manuals that are available, but no e-learning for that one. And for the award in adapting physical activity for ante and postnatal clients, we have hard copy manual, e-manuals available from 1st of May. E-learning will be available, but that will be available from the 1st of August this year. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a little bit of a showcase around some of these resources so you can see what it is that's available. In terms of these resources, our fees list has been updated and is available on our website, so feel free to access that to see price points for these. Okay, so here you can see our robustly made perfect bound hard copy manuals. These support the qualification and aligns fully to the qualification specification, allowing learners to prepare for all of the assessment elements. These are packed full of relevant and up-to-date information, and as you will see, they're presented in a dynamic way with an effective balance of text and relevant imagery. They're also really nicely sectioned, and this really helps with layering of learning, and they're also supplemented with some really neat end of section summaries. So I'd like to show you one of our e-manuals now. In this example, we're going to have a look at the Diploma in Sports Massage Therapy e-manual. So our e-manuals are hosted in our LMS platform and they are compatible across all devices and operating systems. If you do decide to take up this resource, then learners will get their own login access to this particular resource. They will jump into the actual course itself and they'll be presented with something that looks like this. We have set them up to enable either a full screen view within the platform, or by clicking on this link here, we'll open up into a new tab, and that has the advantage of allowing learners to work on projects concurrently, for example, an assignment, while still having the e-manual open. They may be working across multiple screens as well. But let me show you how the e-manual works. Now, they can navigate it via the tile, however, they would want to, for the best experience, open up the full screen. So you click on this area, and this allows them to access the full screen and the full e-manual. There are a fair range of options in terms of functions and ways of navigating this particular e-manual, and these are all based upon the sort of little strip down the bottom here, this function strip or this tab. So we can open up this area into different types of navigational methods. So we could have a look at if there was a preference for example, a horizontal scroll, where it scrolls different ways. So we've got a few options in terms of how we work around the actual manual itself. We can zoom in and out of various areas if we wanted to. That's an option. So that's that's useful when it's particularly around sort of images or very detailed pieces of the e-manual. You can do keyword searches by hitting this as well. If you wanted to do that, that's something you can do. And then you can close out of the full screen here. So I'm just going to turn it back to my vertical scroll again. A couple of additional features in terms of how this operates. We can actually move between chapters by looking at the table of contents. So we can select a certain chapter we want to go to, and it will jump straight to that chapter. We can also have a look at actually isolating a particular page. So again, page overview, and then we can select the page that we want to jump to as well, which will help us navigate the e-manual. So hopefully that gives you a reasonable overview of the e-manual. In the example of this diploma in sports massage therapy, we'll also provide the references. The functions are the same, just the content's different. And these e-manuals are also available if you take up our option of the whole qualification in the LMS. They will be embedded within the course, so everything's together in one place. So we're really excited to present our e-learning offering that will be available across fitness coach, personal trainer, and the anti and postnatal qualifications. Again, this is hosted within our LMS and is compatible across all devices. And this offering is comprehensive. So just to give you a bit of an idea, the e-learning module number for fitness coach and personal training combined presents over 100 modules. So we're gonna have a look at a couple of the modules in a minute so you can get an idea. But these are really dynamic and interactive experiences that are broken down into sort of micro learning or bite-sized topics that cover the full content of the qualification specification. So all the content is there to support. This is an example you're seeing now from our personal trainer qualification. This is what it looked like from a learner's perspective. So we've got the actual modules themselves within the course, and we've also got the gradebook attached so learners can keep track of how they're doing. And as a training provider, you can also keep track of how they're progressing and what they've done or what they're yet to do. So if we jump into nutrition, so this is an example. So this nutrition unit is broken down, and I'm just going to sort of scroll down so you can see how it's broken down into the narrow topics that cover the whole of the nutrition unit. And therefore, the idea is these small pieces of learning can be taken as and when you conduct your teaching, and you can align it to or layer it to your schemes of work. So that's nutrition. As you can see, these are the modules. So let's jump in and take a look at a couple of the modules and how they behave and how the learners will experience them. So let's take a look at an example. This is how nutrients fuel activity, and this is from the nutrition unit within personal trainer. So this is the overview screen. We can jump between the subtopics here if we like, or we can just work through it in a logical order. So we're going to do that. Start module. Each module consists of a welcome video. The welcome videos are split between the topics that are covered and also what is going to be an introduction to the topic itself. I'll play you a small section of this video so you get an idea.
Welcome to our e-learning module on how nutrients fuel activity. In this section on how nutrients fuel activity, we'll cover energy during exercise, factors affecting energy metabolism, fatigue and muscle glycogen, and recovery after exercise. We'll also be covering food. Men, women, children, adults, and active versus sedentary people have different requirements. Nutrition science continually evolves with new research, technological advancements, and improved dietary analysis and coaching practices.
So that gives you a little bit of idea of the videos, and that's consistent throughout all of the modules that we've put together. You've got an indication of the time span that it will take you to complete the individual module, just as a bit of a guide for learners. Time required. We can jump into the next subtopic. So we've tried to make sure everything is as varied and dynamic as possible. So different ways of presenting information, different ways that learners interact with the module as well, as you'll see as I work through. This one in particular just starts off with another video. So again, I'll play a small section.
During exercise, the body requires more energy, making skeletal muscles, the heart, and lungs work harder. Energy is released by splitting ATP.
So a small bit of information through the video. Different ways of presenting information. So this is a flashcard stack. So you can move these We've avoided sort of text-heavy sections or just presenting text in favour of the dynamic and variation in ways that we can present it. So I'll show you a few different ways here. So this is just information in tabs. Tried to bring some imagery into topics as well to make sure it's sort of brought alive. Different ways of displaying or showing information, so interactivity with a graph, in this case the fuel mix for different intensities of exercise. We move on, we've got some information presented through a flashcard stack. Moving on, this is a label graphic, so get some interactivity with the icons here. An accordion, and also what we try to do is ensure that there's embedded tasks as a form of learning within the modules as well. So this is a sorting activity, and then we move into the last sections. There's another example of embedded tasks. In this time we've got a multi-response question that we can answer and submit. Obviously you can retry. I obviously need to work on that one. And yeah, so hopefully that gives you an idea around the variation presentation of the information and the learning experience. Every module finishes off with a knowledge quiz as well. So this is a summary and some questions that would test the learners' ability to absorb the information and apply it to different scenarios. And again, here we got different types of questions embedded within the quiz itself. There's some matching questions that we've embedded, true false types of questions, and the learner will get their result at the end. So that's an example. I'm going to show you another example so we can have a look at a few more different methods of how we've put things together. And just for a bit of variety, I thought I'd show you a more practical module. So the one we've just looked at, being nutrition, is more theory-based. The practical modules we've supported with some additional activities and ways of presenting information, which I'd like to show you. So we jump into this one, training methods and techniques. Again, this is within personal trainer. I'll just skip the video. But in the resistance training methods, we've got methods of presenting the information. In this particular case, this is some training approaches, resistance-based training approaches. We have recorded some of our own videos that support learning as well, so I can show you just a little snippet from one.
Right, this exercise here is going to be an antagonistic superset. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a seated row, nice and straight, the head staying neutral, facing forward, and you're keeping to a good rep tempo. So you're focusing on those 8.
So we've got some additional video content that we've embedded that supports the learning, and then as per before, we've got some tasks that are embedded to consolidate that learning experience. Moving to functional training, we have used videos as well. For example, here we've used videos that are embedded within a this particular one is called a label graphic. Then the videos open up within there. They can be brought into full screen. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how we've put these together. There's some exercise examples as well here. This is me trying to do a cable chop. So that gives you an example, a little bit of a balance between how we've put things together practically versus theory-based as well within the modules. So there's a variation there. I'd just like to say a word on accessibility as well in relation to this particular learning resource. So we have embedded accessibility features throughout the development of these modules, and we've used design features such as transcripts, subtitles, image alt tags, keyboard navigation possibilities, screen reader compatibility. So we really think we've set a new benchmark for accessibility resource design here as well. So hopefully that gives you a good flavour or a little bit of a taster for our e-learning modules. So I just want to take you through another option. If you do decide to select our learning resources and the full portfolio of evidence, then there is another option available as well, and that's to have the course housed in the LMS, so combining everything in one place and managing it all through our LMS platform. So we've had great success with the reform qualifications using this approach, and we've moved it over so there'll be one platform area per qualification that we're launching. So I just want to show you briefly what this will look like from a learner perspective if you decide to take this option. So tiles format again, we have the resources embedded, so we can embed the resources with the learning requirements as well. So this is our e-manual, same approach as before, same options as before that I've showed you within the webinar. We also sort of have the full version, and we've kind of broke it down into each unit to make sure it's a little bit more manageable as well if learners just want to digest the unit as well. The learning resources are embedded as well, so there will be a system where the learner would, for example, jump into the skeletal system workbook here. It will take them to the actual workbook that can be downloaded here. The learner could then complete it either digitally, or perhaps they want to print it off hard copy, and they may want to actually reattach it as photos. That's possible as well. There's a nice link between the learner and the assessor within the platform, so there's notifications that move between the two, and you can manage your groups and observe how your learners are getting on through the gradebook as well that's embedded within the platform. So if we look at another example of one of the learning resources that would be completed as part of the practical element, so we can jump into this tile here, and we could have a look at, for example, this element here, which is the assignment around how learners would create a gym program based off the consultation. So that in this case, rather than the workbook, you can see attached here is the actual assignment document itself, or the template that the learner would complete, upload it to the system, and then that could be assessed within the actual system. So one of the big changes to assessment as well is moving away from marks and moving towards pass or refer, or achieved or not yet achieved scaling criteria. So that's a little bit of a run through of the options and the availability of the LMS. As I say, as I mentioned, this is only an option if you do decide to take on our learning resources and our full portfolio of evidence. Should you also decide to take up our LMS offering, then there is a particular area that will be linked to approved staff members, and this is to support with the qualifications. So everything a centre or training provider needs is contained within this area, and this is only for approved tutors, assessors and internal verifiers. So you'd be linked to this and have access to this, and this contains everything that you'd expect and to support you with the delivery of the qualification regardless of your role. Teaching resources, for example, so we will be providing some legacy schemes of work that you can use, and some of the resources that I've already showed you. In addition, there is support and guidance around some video tutorials in here. So if we produce webinars, we can house them in here for you to access from a centre perspective. Any administration requirements or forms we're adding into here, and then FAQs around the qualification and how it works as well. So that's an additional area that I just wanted to highlight. So I hope that's provided a useful overview and showcase of the qualifications that we're launching on the 1st of May, and I really do wish you all the best in your delivery of these exciting products. In terms of qualifications that are coming soon, we've got some more qualifications that are going to follow on from these, so I'll go through these briefly. So we've got the Level 2 award in instructing water-based exercise, the Level 2 award in instructing judo cycling, the Level 2 award in instructing kettlebell training, and the Level 2 award in instructing circuit training. And these will all be available from August of this year. So please do reach out to your designated Active IQ contact for support or if you have any further questions. And I really appreciate your time on this today. Really hope you do well and your learners and your centres benefit from these new developments. So what I'm going to do now is just pass back to Helen for the Q&A section.
Great. So we do hope that you found Roy's recording there interesting and useful, and we're going to move on to the Q&A section now of today's webinar. So the first question we've got relates to GLH, and I'm going to come to Kelly for this one. The GLH has changed between these qualifications and the ones I currently deliver. So what would be the impact on me?
Thanks, Helen. So yeah, guided learning hours, or GLH as we often refer to it, is an estimate of the time an average learner spends in structured learning. This includes things like teaching, instruction and supervised activities with a tutor or a trainer. It is important to note though that GLH is provided as a guide rather than a fixed requirement, and it doesn't account for all delivery models. So depending on how you deliver your courses or qualifications, your actual delivery time may vary. So in terms of the impact for use, it's a change in the GLH doesn't actually necessarily mean a significant change to how you will deliver. It's actually more about ensuring that learners have sufficient time and support to achieve the outcomes of the qualification. And as a centre, you do still have the flexibility to plan and structure your delivery in a way that works for you and your learners while still meeting the qualification requirements.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kelly. I'm going to stay with you for the second one, if that's all right.
Yeah, no problem.
What are the main differences between these commercial qualifications and the reformed approved technical qualifications that centres have already run this year that we already have available?
Okay, thanks, Helen. This is actually quite a common question. So a few points just on the key differences between the qualifications and the reformed technical qualifications is mainly around the assessment approach. So the reformed qualifications are assessed through externally set assessments and exams, whereas these qualifications that we're talking about today are assessed through a portfolio of evidence. And what this means is that assessment is internally set and marked by the centre. There is greater flexibility in how you would deliver and assess the content, and learners can build evidence of their competence over a period of time. There are also some minor changes to the content across parts of the qualifications, but the core knowledge and skills remain aligned to industry expectations.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kelly. Next question I'm going to come to James for, if that's all right. How can we realistically implement these changes in such a short time frame?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. So for everyone, so these new qualifications, which are available for delivery and new learner registrations from tomorrow, the 1st of May, are replacing the current versions, but they won't be withdrawn until the 31st of July this year. So centres can continue to register new learners onto the current qualifications up until that date. It's also important to note that any learners that are registered up until the 31st of July on the current versions will still have time to complete. So for level 2 qualifications, you have up to 2 years to complete from the point of registration. And for level 3 qualifications, you have up to 3 years. So in practice, this does allow for a managed and phased transition rather than an immediate switch overnight. It's not that our existing versions switch off at midnight tonight and from tomorrow morning you're on these new versions. So you don't need to move everything over at once. You can continue delivering existing qualifications whilst gradually introducing the new ones into your provision, planning the transition in a way that works best for you, your delivery models, your learners, just as long as all learners are registered on the current qualifications before the end of July. I'd encourage you to start reviewing, obviously, the new qualifications now, work with your external verifier, business development manager as well, just to consider how and when you might begin to integrate them.
Perfect, thank you. So there's no rush. There is some time there to move over. James, I'm going to stay with you again for this next one. Do we need to use the LMS during the delivery, and is there a fee to use the LMS?
Yes, great question. Obviously on our LMS we have e-manuals, we have e-learning, and as you'll have just seen, as Roy introduced, the concept of kind of an e-portfolio. Learners are not required to use our LMS to deliver these qualifications. You can still access all of the supporting learning resources via Active Intel once you're approved for the qualification. But the concept of the e-portfolio, if you choose to purchase either e-learning or e-manual, you'll have access to that LMS e-portfolio at no additional cost. And once set up, both learners and staff, including assessors and your internal verifier, will be provided with the login details for that. The request forms for this will be available on Active Intel. However, if you wish to use the LMS e-portfolio as a standalone option without e-learning or e-manual, if you use hard copy manuals, for example, this will incur an additional fee similar to a hard copy lap, and further details will be confirmed shortly and communicated out to all of our centres.
So a few options there, brilliant, thank you. And while I've got you, James, I'm going to keep you for one more if that's all right. Do we know what the weighted or non-weighted costs of the courses are going to be? Will the level 3 be available through the advanced learner loan?
Yeah, again, really great question. We just make very clear, I know you said at the top of this around these versions of these qualifications not being the ones that attract public funding. But just to be very clear, we do have those. They are our technical versions of qualifications, which were launched last year. So we have technical versions that do attract funding. We do have the weighted or non-weighted costs, and the level 3 does of the technical version does attract adult learner loan funding. So speak to your business development manager for more information on those and to discuss all of the different funding available for all of the technical versions.
Brilliant, thanks James. I'm going to give you a little rest and come to Jess for the next one. Will all the resources like the qualification guidance for the new quals be available from tomorrow?
Hiya, so yeah, all qualification specifications and learning resources will be available from tomorrow. The qualification specifications will be available on our website and the qualification pages. And once you gain approval for the qualification through Active Intel, you will receive access to the learning resources on Active Intel.
Brilliant, thanks Jess, that's really... just looking for any more questions that are coming through. James, I just want to double check with you. The technical versions that attract funding, you've already covered that, haven't you?
Yes.
Brilliant, thank you. And then another question, will CIRRUS continue to be used for the anatomy and nutrition element assessments?
Hi there. Yeah, CIRRUS assessments unfortunately will be going, and they will be replaced with obviously the options that Roy discussed in the webinar. That could be a workbook, or you could design your own assessments. For the current gym and current personal trainer that you can still register on until the end of July, you can still use CIRRUS for obviously registrations before that date. But for the new qualifications that we've just been talking about, CIRRUS cannot be used.
Lovely, thank you. And I've got a question that I'm going to pose to everybody. Once a provider has sent approval, how do they access the teaching resources and how soon would they have access to them? Does anyone know that one?
Oh yeah, I'll take that one. They will be available on Active Intel. So once you apply to offer the qualification through Active Intel, you will gain access. You'll get a message from the customer service team with details on how to access them.
Brilliant, thanks Jess. And another general question for everybody. We've already mentioned extra support that's going to be happening. Will there be any further webinars, for example, on the indoor cycling and the circuit instructing changes? What else is in the pipeline and being planned for, please?
So with regards to the further webinars, there will be more information. Yeah. There will be more information coming out about the new qualifications coming. So, for example, the indoor cycling and circuit training.
Brilliant. And do you know if the resources are whitelisted for prisons?
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Brilliant. And another question, will the course specs or the qual specs be available from tomorrow with everything else that's being published?
Yes, they'll be publicly available on our website under the qualification page. So if you go onto our website and search under qualifications, it'll appear on there as a PDF document.
Perfect. So everything's going live tomorrow, which is
Yes.
really great news. And do you know if providers need to reapply for approval for the new quals, or each new qual as it becomes available, or will it be automatic?
Annette, would you mind taking this
Yeah,
one?
sorry,
Thanks.
I was just trying to get mute. Yes, for those new qualifications that Roy's just been talking about, you will need to apply for approval. So you'll just need to do that as you would with any other qualification.
Brilliant. And do if the live classes are still a requirement for the PPN course? Is that a Roy question, possibly?
I couldn't hear you. Helen, could you ask that question again? Sorry.
Are the live classes still a requirement for the PPN courses? I think that's a Roy question.
Yeah, I think so.
Is that related to delivery?
I can't.
As
Is
in
he saying live question? Oh, I'm struggling.
Live classes.
Sorry, I'll just drop it. Is that it depends if that's in regards to delivery,
Face-to-face delivery.
whether it's or just live delivery of some description. So I think we need a little bit more on that before we can
detail
answer.
then. And I've got another question. Any plans for ETM?
Isn't that one in the updated qual list that's been put out?
That's all I
Group
have.
training's got the
group
exercise to music pathway,
Yeah.
which obviously we have still got. It's just been relaunched tomorrow.
James, I think I'm coming back to you for this next one. Is there an end date for registrations on the current level 3 XREF?
XREF, yes, 31st of July of this year as well. Yeah.
Perfect.
And then as of the 1st of August, we have the replacement qualification. So there will be no gap in provision, which would be the new long-term conditions.
Brilliant. Okay. We've come to the end of Q&A bit. There's nothing else coming in there now. So we will follow up on the questions that haven't been answered yet or need more detail for. So want to reassure you that if you're looking to deliver these new qualifications, you will need to apply for approval, even if already approved, to deliver the current version. So we've already had that question. Once your approval's in place, you'll then gain access to the full suite of learning resources. And we would encourage you to begin that process as soon as you're ready, so you're in a strong position ahead of your first delivery. Everything will be on the website, the Active IQ portal. Please look on there for everything from tomorrow, and of course the additional support resources that are going to be added as well. If we have any more questions come in, please do put them in. We've got 5 minutes left, but we'll follow them up from now. I want to thank you for spending your time with us today and asking those questions. We hope you found it useful. Please keep an eye out for future support activities that Active IQ will be offering. Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.